Israel has bombed several key targets in Gaza in retaliation for what it says was a Hamas rocket attack early Monday morning.
The word peace and the word Israel are two words you probably would never find together in the media. However, a couple of years ago I went to Israel and I experienced peace. If you're unaware, Israel has been a state since 1948, and due to many political and religious tensions, there's been a lot of conflict in the country for decades now. Countless acts of terror and violence have occurred. In fact, the week after we left Jerusalem, there was a report of 17 stabbings. But due to the nature of the city and the country being divided, conflict is sadly inevitable. But the point of this video is to show that despite what the media says, Israel can be one of the most transcendental and peaceful and beautiful places on earth, and I'd encourage you to visit yourself. The religious sites and views we had over places like the Sea of Galilee, the Mount of Olives and the Temple Mount were incredibly beautiful, and it might have been the religious contexts and the geographical locations, but it really puts you into a mindset of peaceful and calm reflection. We actually went to the border with Syria called the Golan Heights, and I wasn't allowed to film that, but it's funny that in the gap that's under Israeli control and is under so much controversy, just a couple of miles away, vineyards are being created, and it almost felt like a scene out of The Sound of Music. The mountains, the fields, the scenery, the trees, the forest, the running water, it was beautiful. However, that's not to ignore the ongoing violence and conflict, and I'd like now to hand over to my friend Benjamin Hailu from Sweden, who did a very similar trip to mine just a year ago.
Hi there, my name is Benjamin, also known as Ben Hailu, and I'd like to speak a little bit about my time in Israel. Before I talk about my experience, I'd like to give you a bit of backstory to why I went to Israel. It all began about 6 months before the trip when me and my family were planning a vacation. Israel was a common interest, so Israel it was. At first it was a family vacation, but then it spiraled into being a group vacation with about 50 people from my mother's church group. So all the tickets were bought and everything was planned. All I had to do now was wait until the day of the trip arrived. And during these months before the trip, I had time to think about what I thought of going to Israel, a country I only knew things about through article headlines. This of course set me up for a big issue. All I read about Israel and Palestine is just conflict and misery. While there is good, the media never focuses on it because the bad articles, the articles focus on catastrophes, are the one that generates most clicks, most money. And from an economical standpoint, I completely understand why they do that. However, my fear of going to Israel was growing. I was preparing myself for the worst to happen after stepping on that plane to Israel. Due to my expectations being so low, I was setting myself up to be proven wrong, which I completely was. I've never experienced a country with such a rich and different culture. The food was amazing and the people were so interesting. Everything just stood out to me. Of all the other vacations to popular tourist sites, going to Israel has definitely been one of the most impactful vacations I've had in my life so far. But I'm not going to stand here and preach as if there's nothing going on in Israel and Palestine. There is obviously a very clear conflict going on that needs to be taken action against. Since I am just a tourist, I cannot speak for the inhabitants. Comparing 13 days in Israel to a lifetime there cannot even be done. The most scared I got to be was one day when we were in the bus on our way back home and I was asleep. Suddenly I woke up because the bus stopped. The first thing I saw was a soldier marching his way through the bus back and forth with a huge AR in his arms, staring at every person he walked by. I made eye contact with him and the look he had in his eyes was it was terrifying. It was a fear I've never experienced before, a helplessness that made me numb. A helplessness because he had so much power of my life in his hands with that gun. It's chilling. After that happened, I got to know why he was on the bus to begin with. Apparently we were by the border between Israel and Palestine. We were living in Palestine at the time, so we had to get over. And the military by the border were suspicious of us, so they just ran a protocol investigation.
And actually, I experienced a very similar thing. On our way into West Bank, we were pulled over for a routine security check, and a couple security, armed personnel came on board with AR-15s and pistols, and I felt that same exact fear that Ben described, that helplessness, and that he had all the power in the situation. But that was the only slight sense of fear I had throughout the whole trip. But the truth is, Israeli security checks happen to keep you safe. I met Palestinian Arabs and Israelis the same. I never experienced any sort of tension at all. In fact, here's a fun fact. The airline called El Al, which is the main one through Israel to other countries, is one of the most secure on Earth. In fact, it has onboard anti-missile systems. Obviously, I can't speak for the civilians of Israel and Palestine, and in fact the whole of the Middle East, but as a tourist visiting Israel, despite what the media says, there are many places to visit there that are truly peaceful and beautiful. I'd encourage you to consider going. In fact, the company Oak Hall set up trips very regularly to Israel with many activities, locations, and exciting things to be getting on with, and some of the best food I've ever eaten in my life. So thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, be sure to give a like, subscribe, share around with some friends, and perhaps consider a trip to Israel yourself. I'm Thomas Sinkinson, and I found peace in Israel.